But the
everybody.
truth is, but Carrie, usually people, when they do these live things, I noticed a lot of people who do this, not that I do it, but I've been watching a lot. They usually take a few minutes just to not talk because it takes people a minute to get logged in, right, Lori?
Yeah, that's true.
That's true. So we're good.
Yeah, there is some of that going on. I see when I watch them and whatever.
Yeah.
But anyway, hi everybody. I'm Carrie. This is
Kasie. Hi. And Groovy again is right there, but she's sleeping as per usual at this time of day.
So Kasie and I decided to do this because we both have a lot of clients that we love to help and talk about obsession with animals that we have. And so we decided we were going to start doing this on Thursday nights to help you guys with any questions. Sometimes it's really hard, I know, for both of us when we're in work mode and somebody has a more in-depth question. It's really hard for us to get to those. So we thought, you know what, this is a place that you guys can come. You can ask us questions, and then if you don't have any questions, you can listen to Kasie and I talk about dogs and cats, because that's what we love to do. And this way, Kasie, we don't have to, like, you know, my poor husband, right? Like, all he does is listen to me talk about dogs and cats.
Oh, my poor husband is, I don't talk when I get home because I'm so talked out.
Really?
So he's like so annoyed that I'm always just so quiet, because by the time I get home, I just can't talk anymore. I've been talking all day, so I'm too tired, and I'm actually a total introvert, so it's a lot for me to talk, honestly.
That's so interesting.
So,
it's interesting that you say that you're an introvert, because in a weird way, I kind of feel like I am a little bit too, but then I also am not, unless, like, put it this way, if we went to a party together and there was like a ban on the front door that said you're not allowed to talk about dogs or cats or any animals at all, I would stand in the corner awkwardly, not knowing what else to say.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Yeah, I'm usually don't talk at all until people bring up this topic, and then I can't shut up. So that's usually what happens. Yeah.
That's why I'm extroverted, kind of, but if we were at that same party and someone was like, let's break the rules and talk about my dog, I would be like, and go.
Yeah, no, people cannot keep up. I can't shut up. Yeah. Same thing.
Yeah, me too. So real quick, as people are coming in, there's a little spot at the end if you haven't done it. If you have any questions, interrupt Kasie and I and ask us your questions. We love questions. We feed on them. So we're two little sharks just waiting to answer any little question that might pop up. So don't feel like any question is stupid. Any question is, we can't answer. If we can't answer it, we will direct you to someone that can. So you're not ever going to ask us a question. Neither one of us are veterinarians, so we're not going to be able to give you full diagnosis of anything. We can't do that.
No diagnosing, no treatment. Yeah.
No, we can't do any of that. But if you have a diagnosis and you want kind of like a little help on maybe food and stuff that you could feed, we both can certainly help you there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot like, we're offering this to the wider audience because oftentimes, well, for me, Carrie, I don't know if you do, but I do consultations. I do those a lot all day.
Yeah.
And then also I'm at the shop. And so this is sort of opening that up to a wider audience is what I'm thinking, is that, you have people who come into your shop and into your grooming, and you're all day long probably helping people with their questions. And so that's what I'm doing too. And so this is just to be able to offer that to more people, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. And I think that, I just did a live on a live Facebook with a Facebook group that I'm an admin for. And one of the things we were talking about is, the limitations, but also, this kind of information is so valuable to have experience, people who have done it, who've gone through it, who've seen it. Both Kasie and I have over 20 years each, I know, working around in this environment, and the experience that we have alone and together is pretty valuable, I think, for anybody to. And I think we're also both very responsible. Like, I'm a very responsible non-vet. That's a weird thing to say, but I feel like I'm a very, very responsible non-vet. I see some of these Facebook groups where they will just tell you, they'll diagnose your dog off of one sentence. They'll tell you what it is. Oh, that's kidney failure. And then they'll tell you what to do.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Yeah, that's not great.
They'll do that.
Possible.
So I'm very, and I know Kasie is very responsible. We're both very responsible with the information that we give you.
That's probably because of our shared experience in working in vet clinics.
Yes.
That's probably why. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that's a good thing.
Having worked with veterinarians and worked for veterinarians, you know,
and understand the value. There is
there
is value to our veterinarians. But there's also the one thing I think that is sad that veterinarians do is they don't hold any value to what you and I do, right? So I can hold them up.
You probably have vets who refer people to you.
I do, but I also have vets. Yeah. I also have vets who say, "Oh no, don't do that. You got to do this or whatever." So it can be a little bit difficult when I get a client who I love. I was so excited about this. I did a consultation with a client, and I wanted her to go to her vet and get some blood work done, and the dog's vitamin D levels were very low. And so I gave her a diet.
Did you use the VDI test for the vitamin D?
Her vet, it was Dr. Dodds' office.
Oh, okay.
So Dr. Jean Dodds has 2 new veterinarians. They're not new vets. They're new for her. Yeah. So yes. So they ran that test and her vitamin D levels were low. So I helped formulate a diet for her to help that. And then I got an email from the veterinarian, but it was one I didn't know. And I started off, I said, oh, here we go. She's going to want this dog on supplements and she's going to want it on kibble. And I'm going to be dead in the water. Yeah. But I was super happy. She said, this diet looks great. Let's start her. I wanted to start her off, which I was fine with, on the supplements and then wean her off the supplements. So I was like, oh, I love that the vet wasn't anti-raw and I should have known better because she was working with Dr. Dodds. Yeah. So, but I get nervous when I get letters from vets, you know, because I'm like, here we go.
I know. Yeah. And for so many years, since we have been doing this for so long, it wasn't accepted. You know, I mean, I know when I first started, I didn't even tell people I fed raw. You know, I was too scared to let anyone know about it. So so I mean that, you know, because I had worked at vet clinics and I know how judgmental they can be. So I didn't want to be you know, someone that would think was being irresponsible or a safety risk or something like that. Yeah. So.
Yeah. I think the most important thing you can really do is to get several opinions. I think it's very dangerous in anything we do in our life, right? To only have one track, one mind, one opinion, one everything. So I think, you know, if you can get from a holistic vet, a conventional vet, a nutritionist, you've created a really great foundation for your dog. So before we started, Kasie, Lori had to stop us. So for those of you guys who are listening, Lori's in the background. She helps us with any technical issues and any questions that she can type in and stuff. But Lori had to stop us because she said, you two, stop. You're having a great conversation. Stop talking.
Yeah, we were already like going on and on about flea stuff. So yeah,
make that the topic. Let's talk about.
I'm wondering if my friend Carla is logged in. She might not be. I know there's a time difference, so she's a little ahead.
Oh,
Carla,
really?
Are you here? How do we see who's here? Are we able to see who's here, Lori?
I don't know how to do that.
There's participants. So
we have we
have Brian, and then BG and Victoria's here. Hi, Victoria. Now I feel like I know Victoria.
Yeah, Brian, BG, and Victoria Suarez. Hello, welcome everybody. It would be nice to hear from you if you guys have any questions or comments or anything like that. We're here for you.
So Brian is actually going to be coming on my podcast next season.
Victoria just said the nicest thing. Did you see that there's a chat? Can you see the chats, Carrie?
No, why?
It's on. Oh, yeah. For me, it's on the side. Sorry, I'm getting used to all this tech. Getting used to using Zoom for this. But Victoria, that's so awesome. Oh, so a local vet, yeah, that's so great.
That feeling, right, as a nutritionist, to have a vet validate that this diet is working.
And not only a vet, but a really good vet. Like, she's a really good vet. Yeah, we really refer a lot of people to her. It's the Well-Adjusted Pet. If you're in San Francisco area, and particularly for any kind of musculoskeletal disorders or, chiropractic. She also works out of, you want to hear a little story? So when I first started, yeah, I know. So I can't stop for the story. So when I started SFRA in a garage in 2003, and Members Garage as a buyer's group, when we first started like kind of expanding out, there were a few drop locations that we would do. That was before we moved into here, or when we first moved into here, around there. Anyway, one of the first locations we dropped at was this awesome place that one of our members, they were a couple, and they opened up this place called the Rex Center, and it's a water therapy and physical therapy place. It's beautiful, and it's so cool because it's right on the water, like on the coast, the Pacific coast. It's totally so cool. The location, the water therapy on the Pacific coast. It's amazing in Pacifica. And so they opened up that spot. So that was one of our first drop places that we would do every month. And I would go do the deliveries myself, actually. Or we'd have volunteers do it, but oftentimes it was me because someone wouldn't sign up or something. Yeah. So was doing the deliveries there, and they ended up moving away and they sold the business to some new owners, but many years have gone by, and since then now Ilana Struble and the Well-Adjusted Pet is practicing out of there, and I haven't been there in years, but I did get to meet the new owners at one point a long time ago when they first moved in, and we don't do drops there anymore, but it's a really cool facility because it's this whole physical therapy place. So yeah, she says she's amazing, intuitive, and respectful. What's her name? Very true. Ilana Struble.
Yeah.
The Well-Adjusted Pet. Well, we're talking about her. Hopefully her ears are burning.
Yeah.
She's awesome. Well,
it's important because we as holistic minded people, we are limited in what we have available to us. I know I am. I live in Orange County, and I don't have a very big group of holistic veterinarians that
we hold them close and value them greatly because they are gems. They are just diamonds in a giant pile of rocks. There's these amazing diamonds that we need to cherish and hold dear because they're
you could say diamonds people. In the rough. Well, RUF.
Yeah. Yeah. But they're really, we do have them, and we have several that are members and longtime members and from the garage days members, and those veterinarians are just so amazing because and also the great thing about them is that a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them actually are really honest about their knowledge base and their understanding of nutrition, and they totally defer to me, and they come to me with their own animals. I mean, we're making a custom grind right now for a veterinarian who used to almost see everyone at SFRA. She was like the SFRA vet. She's so talented, an amazing homeopath. She's retired, so she's not working, and she hasn't worked for a long time, but oh my gosh, she's amazing. Right now she's out of the country actually, but someone's pet sitting her kitty, and I make a custom meal for her cat who has really serious health issues. So, she came to me, she's like, I don't know what to do or how to make it. Can you make it for me? And her cat's still alive, which is amazing. Her cat was really sick. So
those are the vets I absolutely love because they're also the vets. This has always been one of my issues with not veterinarians, but the belief that your veterinarian should know every single thing.
Yeah, it's not fair. It's a lot to know. Fair? Yeah, it's a lot to know. Yeah, they need to do an extra. They have to have a passion for that, and they have to, do more education and a lot more research. And if you do the conventional research and you become a conventional, veterinary nutritionist, that's not necessarily what would really meet the standards that you and I have, Carrie, for natural nutrition, which is a whole different philosophy and a whole different paradigm. So they would have to go even further to learn that. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a good thing because that is a question that comes up a lot where people will say to me, well, they're a board certified nutritionist. Hills has a board certified nutritionist, but you would think that nutrition is nutrition. You would think, but there's a difference. And I think the easiest difference I can see, aside from it being raw and whole and fresh versus kibble, is it's the difference between getting nutrition through supplements and and getting nutrition through food. And that, I think, is what is the difference between a conventional board certified nutritionist and a pet nutritionist who studies raw.
Well, and I think that goes back to the origins of pet food and commercial highly processed foods. It's because they use all these ingredients that actually have all these complications when it comes to being able to metabolize and absorb and even recognize nutrients. So, and it's also cooked to death. So they formulate diets with supplements because the diet is so poor. So they end up using supplements. And so it's that paradigm and that whole template of how they're making food and looking at nutrition through that lens. That's kind of, it's just so different than what we do, because we're looking at a whole natural food that's recognized by the body, absorbable. We don't have anti-nutrients. We don't have, binders and things that make it so that you can't get all of the nutrition from a species appropriate food and that works with their body. And so if we're feeding things that have, leptins and phytates and all kinds of like problems associated with it, then you're going to have to kind of come up with this chemistry of like trying to figure out what nutrients are missing or problematic and try and infill those using supplements, because that's the template that they're conditioned to or following, because they're following the standards that were created for commercial, highly processed foods.
Yeah. No, exactly. That's the problem. But it's why people struggle with not, like, well, they said that this one scientifically studied and proven to have all the nutrients, it's complete and balanced, that kind of thing. I think, wouldn't you agree too, that's also designed to be fed the one and only thing that your dog eats every day, right?
Well, you know how long the feeding trial is, right, Carrie? I'm looking at it right now. It's 6 months.
6 months.
If your dog doesn't lose significant amount of weight or die within 6 months, the dogs that are in the feeding trial, and it's usually something like, I think it's 8 or 9 dogs.
Well, 12, I'm pretty sure, but 2 can drop out. 2 can gain weight or die, and they get pushed to the side and not reported. You can lose 2 in the trial. So, and then they can continue the trial on. I'm like, what?
Maybe that's why there's confusion with the number.
Dog or a dog, and if I was aware, like, that animal still has a value. You don't just go, oh, well, sorry, he gained too much weight. And if I'm right, if you have the study in front of you, it doesn't include losing weight, only gaining weight.
No, well, my understanding for an AAFCO feeding trial, it's 6 months and determined by a vet, blood test before, end of the test. There's basically 25 different blood parameters that they need to run. And I think that they can't lose weight or die. But you may be right that there may be 2 people. And I mean, the reason why I have this little sticker is because I'd actually like to, even though it's so silly, and to me, it seems almost like a farce to, in a way. I mean, because it's not a large enough population, and it's not long enough time to adequately determine whether something's really long-term healthful for an animal, in my opinion. So the research done by Dog Risk, Dr. Anna in Helsinki, now that to me is much more valuable and more insightful about what's healthy and not healthy for the long term. But these AAFCO feeding trials are considered sort of the gold standard to determine whether or not a food is suitable for all life stages or, different stages. And I was thinking about maybe doing that with our food, because I know it would pass with flying colors. It'd be so simple. And it'd be nice to be able to say that we passed a AAFCO feeding trial, but I also don't value them that much personally. So I don't know, but that might help people feel more confident with our food. I don't know. I always want to make people feel more comfortable and not be afraid.
Not be afraid. It's sad because it's a very scary thing. Like when you've been doing something for so long. I remember the very first time, and then I'm going to get to Brian because he has a pretty interesting comment here. Cool. But I remember my very first time I fed a dog raw, I was scared to death. Like, I thought I was going to kill my dog. And I was it's so silly when I think back on it, but the advice was not given to me by a veterinarian, not by a vet tech, not by a nutritionist, not by anybody except a little old lady, swear, who fed her dogs raw chicken drumlets. She had little papillons, and she would give them, and their coats were beautiful. And
were you a groomer at the time?
I was. Well, I was a vet tech, had just left the vet tech world and opened up my little grooming shop to get through college, and which I thought I was going to go do, and I didn't because I can't leave the animals. But so I have this little grooming shop to pay my way through college, and this lady she must have been 75 at the time. And she would bring these little Papillons to me every couple weeks, and they would just, there are no ear infections, no skin problems, beautiful, thick, gorgeous, shiny coats, always. And one day because I had just read Dr. Pitcairn's book, and I was just kind of like starting out to think about what's going on. What do you feed them? And she's like, well, I remember in her little old lady voice, oh, I would tell you, honey, but you would probably not believe me. She didn't want to tell me either.
So right, Carrie, that was how I was with when I brought my cat into the emergency vet when she was at the end of her life. That's how I met my vet. Is she was working the ER. She's a holistic homeopathic, classical homeopath, but she would work the ER shifts. And she always would tell the story that I came in with Jem, who was 22, and at the end of her life, and I just I knew something wasn't right. So anyway, so we brought her in, and she was just naturally dying. And she said, well, what do you feed her? And I hadn't been to a vet in over 10 years, and I was just kind of scared to say anything. And she always said that I would go, raw food, like I was like so scared to say it. And then when I said it, it was like finding this soulmate person, because when I said it, she goes, that's what I feed too. And I was like, what? Like, no way. Like, she said, that's wonderful, that's exactly what you should feed. And I was like, I just had no idea. And it was immediate love at first sight, and adored her, and I ended up being her assistant, and it was so great. But that's exactly what happened with you, is that she was afraid to tell that. We were all afraid back then. We weren't comfortable telling people these things. Yeah.
Well, I went through it. Then I became a believer after my dog didn't die, because I went and did what she told me, and I was like,
so
I'm going to try.
What did you do? Like, you had a golden retriever, right?
I had a golden retriever named Joy, and I went and got it was bigger than a drumlet. I just went to the store and it was really, when I think back on it, how stupid. I didn't do any research. I didn't do anything. I just, other than reading Dr. Pitcairn's book and starting on my path, I thought, you know what, I'm just going to do it. This makes sense to me. Like, it made sense. And so I went and I got her a chicken drumstick, and I handed it to her. And I remember her looking at me like, am
I allowed? Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
am I allowed? Yeah.
Yeah. And so she took it and she ate it. And I remember watching her eat it and thinking, oh my God, I'm giving her raw chicken bone, right? What do we learn about chicken bones of all things? And in the vet world, that is the worst thing you can give an animal, is a chicken.
Carrie, did you, when you worked as a vet tech and worked in veterinary hospitals, did you ever see a dog that died from a chicken bone or came in with a chicken bone that needed to be removed? I didn't either. Not once.
No.
Not one single time. Plenty of tennis shoes, balls, socks. I mean, all kinds of foreign objects, rocks,
Yeah. I did have we had a boxer one time. He ate, they must have had a giant party. I have no idea, but he ate the twist off bottle caps to the beer. He ate, it was so sad. Oh. He ate so many of them. He was in the hospital for a long time.
Why would he do that?
Right?
Oh my gosh,
I don't know.
That's so weird.
He just seen the x-rays. The whole x-ray was just filled with cats. And they kept him there just to see if he could pass them on his own. And he did. And I kept thinking, ouch, like that has to hurt.
But it's true. They can pass most things. It's kind of amazing.
All of it without any problems in his gut. I was really quite shocked, truthfully. I thought, oh, this dog's gonna, and that was back in the day where I don't know if I think they still do, but we had to leave him there alone at night.
Yep. So did we. And I was the vet. I was the person who was there, last person at night, first person in the morning on the holidays.
First person in the morning is the worst. Closed.
Yeah.
Because
that's
the
where you
worst
get burnt
person
out. It's really sad. Yeah.
Oh, it's so sad. Oh. So Brian said,
I interrupted you and I didn't finish. You didn't get to totally finish your story.
I did. About what?
Giving your first, because you gave it to her and she didn't know if it was okay to eat it.
Well, she lived. That dog actually, so she ate it. Her name was Joy, and she ate it, and she was the healthiest that she could be. I watched her health change. Like, I literally started little by little. I would give her this, and of course I'm learning, so I'm still giving her a little kibble because I look back on what I fed my dogs and I cringe. And I always tell people, don't feel bad, because I used to feed my dogs pedigree, so okay. So, but then I watched slowly, like, her hot spots not coming around and like little things, And she lived, you know what? I take this back. This was Pebbles. No, it was Joy. I'm like, what? I have had golden retrievers. It was Joy. She lived to be 15 years old.
Good. That's great.
And she died in her sleep. Yeah, my other golden before her died when she was 8 years old.
And that's then, typical of goldens now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, now I have a golden retriever who I don't know where she is. I think she's with my husband, but she's going to be 9, June 23rd this month. She's going to be 9 years old, and she still chases the Frisbee and my neighbors, but she's raw. Yeah. 100%. Like she's 100%. Yeah. From day one, I got her as a pup, and she's of course not vaccinated, and she doesn't have, no flea and tick
medication.
No dewormers, nothing, none of it. Nope, not going to happen. And now now I've convinced her that she has to live to 30. So
like, I told my cat that. I know. I told my cat that. I'm like, you're going to have to live to be 30. That's the deal.
We got to get that 30. So Brian says, ever wonder why vet students do not question kibble manufacturers providing their nutrition training? If McDonald's sponsored Harvard Med School, gave students unlimited Big Macs while in school, and pushed McDonald's as complete and balanced, would our human doctors push McDonald's like vets push kibble? Probably.
I don't know. I mean, I hope not. I mean, it's somewhat of a, I think sometimes when you're in it, you can't even see the problem, right.
No.
And it's especially it's like group think, and you're all together, and everyone's, it would take a few people to start questioning, and then maybe everyone else might start questioning. I don't know. I'm not sure. Yeah. But they don't get that much. They don't get that many hours too. It's like a pretty quick, it probably just hits them hard, and then like, okay, got that done. Next thing, they got so much to learn and so much to absorb that they probably don't. I don't know. I'm not sure.
But they do. But that's, I just had I always say just had, like it was. And then I realized, oh God, that was like 3 years ago. So about 3 years ago, I had a really good client of mine who I didn't know, but she had just graduated veterinary school. So she comes in, and I said, she said something about science diet. I don't know how we got off on that tangent, but she said something about science diet. And then I started to say something about raw. And then she responded with, well, I just graduated veterinary school. And I was like, so I just shut up, because there's just stop right there. Yeah. Especially a new student, because she's very excited about everything.
Oh, they don't have the wisdom or the experience yet. Yeah.
There's no communicating. But she did say that while she was in vet school, they gave her, she goes, well, while I was in vet school, they gave us the food to feed my dog. And so she was able to feed her dog with Hills the entire time she was in vet school. And she said, and my dog did fine, was her response. She didn't say my dog thrived and was doing better. She said, my dog did fine on it. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that's okay.
That's fine.
I would love to see where she is in 10 years. I would love to see if in 10 years, if they have the passion, as you say, to start questioning why the animals aren't getting healthier. Why am I giving these medications and I keep seeing this dog back in my office? My favorite vets are the vets that say, I'm doing my job if you never have to come here. Yeah. Those are my favorites. I love that.
Yes. And that's true. I mean, there's that, you're right. They should hopefully only be there for real emergencies, or something really serious comes up.
Or a blood test every once in a while. I just tested. Sure. Yeah, I just tested my dog's taurine levels, and I have a golden, so of course I'm always going to be
DCM.
I never.
Yeah.
Well, not because of that. I know she eats what she's supposed to be eating, but DCM can also be something that is genetic, and so
that's more typical anyway. It's usually is. It's
way
not
more
usually
typical.
Diet. Yeah.
We could talk about that one. You want to talk about DCM?
Yeah, let's talk about that. Yeah, for sure. Especially because you have Goldens, and I have Great Danes, which is another breed that.
Oh yeah, they're in it too. They're in it too. Mm-hmm. So, gosh, that one just threw. So DCM. Everybody who's listening, so dilated cardiomyopathy, is a heart condition. It's prevalent in certain breeds, like Kasie just mentioned. Golden Retrievers are one, but it can be found in any breed. You just have certain breeds that are more prevalent to it. UC Davis did a study many years ago and found that taurine levels low taurine levels could cause DCM, dilated cardiomyopathy. And that I still think is true and correct and great information. And it was great studies that they did. But then about, I want to say it was about 3 years ago when that
I was going to say, that's pretty much right when we got together. That's when we met, right?
Yeah.
The year that was going down, because we were talking about in the car.
So.
It was just all coming to light. Yeah.
So an article came out and it just blew up. I mean, I don't know about you, Kasie, but I had people coming in my office crying, tears, that they were so scared that their dogs were going to get DCM if they didn't eat rice. And the reason why it came out that way was because the article, the headline said, new study shows that dogs die from heart failure from grain-free foods. Grain-free foods, that's what it was. Grain-free foods cause heart problems. That's what the heading said. And then when you dove into it a little bit, it alluded to the fact that they were doing studies, but they were really just gathering information at that time. There was no studies.
And the truth is even to this day, there's still a lot of confusion. Even, I think I told you last time we spoke that I had recently had 2 clients, and and it was my first experience with this, but you had experience with this, but I had not, where a board certified cardiologist had told them that they need to feed oatmeal to their dogs in order for them to get adequate taurine. And it just blew my mind. I mean, there's 0 taurine in oatmeal, 0. You cannot get taurine from.
And it can't go into the body and mix with something else and become taurine either. There's no possible way to get taurine from oatmeal or from rice or from really anything other than
meat.
Meat, you can get it, eggs, which has a little bit of taurine in it. But it was shocking to me how many people believed, and still to this day, I still hear that argument. And it's even more upsetting now that I continue to hear this argument, because the study did come out and the FDA said there are no findings. There are no findings. And so and yet vets are still saying it, still telling clients.
It's just so shocking, because I mean, it would take just a second for them to think about it. And they're smart people. I don't understand, especially a board certified cardiologist. That's so shocking to me, because that nutrient doesn't even exist in plant foods. You literally cannot. I'm a vegan. You cannot get taurine in plant foods. It doesn't exist. It only exists in animal foods. Now, as a human, and like dogs, not like cats, but dogs can take 2 other amino acids and be able to create taurine. That's methionine and cysteine. But that's how I get my taurine. Some people who are anti-vegan think it's not adequate, but so far so good for me. But the truth is that you just cannot, and cats cannot make that, metabolize it that way in their bodies. They need direct, actual, real taurine, and the only way to get that is through animal products and certain cuts and certain. It's a very fragile nutrient as well. So it's amino acid, which is like a protein. So it's what makes protein. Proteins.
I think when they realized, when some veterinarians realized, oh no, they can actually, you can't get taurine unless it comes from meat. Then they started saying, well, actually what they're trying to find out is if the cysteine is blocked, right? Because cysteine is, this is the easiest way for me to kind of explain it. It's probably not the scientific way to explain it. So please don't email me and tell me I'm an idiot, but it makes sense to me. So when I researched it, I did a podcast on it with one of the veterinarians in Chicago, and we just did a lot of research on it. And how it makes sense to me is cysteine is a carrier kind of for the taurine. So what they were kind of saying is that, you need cysteine and you need taurine and you need these amino acids. They work together. And the argument was that when you take the rice out of food and then you put in peas and legumes and those kind of things, it blocks the cysteine so that the taurine can't work. So then it changed from being, it's not because you don't have grain in it, it's because you have peas and legumes in it, and peas and legumes are blocking the taurine. So, but the study came out and said, no, there's no findings whatsoever. And it was kind of interesting to me because some of the vets that I talked to said that they were asking for those dogs. They weren't really doing a true study, like bring me all the dogs with dilated cardiomyopathy. Instead, they said, bring me all the dogs with dilated cardiomyopathy that are eating grain-free foods. So you don't really have, you see? So that was what went out to veterinarians. If you have a dog who's eating grain-free food and we want him in our study, but they needed to do and that's where the FDA got involved and said, we need to do a better study because they had 250 dogs. That's not a study. I mean, come on. That's crazy. So anyway.
And they need, and it's such a fragile nutrient. Like cooking it pretty much kills it altogether.
Right.
So then you need to supplement with it if you're going to do that. And, it's most abundant when the animal is first killed. And then after that, it just starts to diminish over time. Temperature changes. Being defrosted, being cut, being ground. Every time you do something to the meat, it diminishes the amount of taurine in it. And so you want to do very little to it and you'll get the most taurine. So raw, whole, fresh foods as much as possible. And like the darker meats like heart and tongue, turkey thighs are a good thing, high in taurine.
It's funny when
but it's not good for kitties in my opinion. Yeah.
What isn't good for kitties?
In my opinion, seafood, but seafood is a good source of taurine. Yeah.
I when I tell people about you, or when I'm taking a client from kibble to raw, sometimes there's a little bit of a process you need to do. And sometimes sometimes people will say, you want me to give them like raw organ meat, like heart, like I'm supposed, and they kind of, and I always say, you should meet my friend Kasie. and then I tell them,
and she does it. Yeah.
Well, and I'll say, but I always tell them, I say, if you think about every step from the moment that an animal is killed, from the hunt, everything from that, once that animal dies, then the nutrients are every step of the way. Like you said, you're losing the nutrients. And you go all the way from the hunt to the little brown piece of kibble. I mean, you might as well eat wood. So
Jackson Galaxy, do you ever see his videos or YouTube channel? Mm-hmm. So Jackson Galaxy, he's really cool. He's a cat behaviorist, and he's come out really strongly for raw food, which is amazing.
Oh, good.
So he's very influential. He even had I think he had an Animal Planet show for a while. I don't have a TV. I never had a TV, so I don't know if it was, I'm not sure. But he just did a series of videos, I don't know, a couple months ago or a month ago, where he goes through the entire process of how kibble is made. And it was so helpful because it's really good graphics. It's really well done. And if anyone wants to go to Jackson Galaxy and find those videos, they're so great. Because it really, once you watch that and you realize just how it's just so cooked to death. It's like 4 different times where it's cooked, and it's not even food anymore. I mean, it's so denatured at that point. And that's why they have to spray it with things that are palatable, and then also just spray a bunch of vitamins on it and call it good, which to me, that's not what you should be eating.
None of us would eat like that. That's what we always say. Like, you
shouldn't.
I always joke about it Christmas. Like, I want to put together a commercial, like someone's going to hear, well, someone might see this. And if you ever see this commercial on TV, it was my idea first. I want to set up a Christmas dinner, like a really beautiful table, and invite like friends and family over. And then, on the menu, you would read the menu, and the menu says like turkey and mashed potatoes or potatoes. And it has like the whole Thanksgiving dinner spread. And you're like, you have all these people. And then I just want to come by as a chef and pour kibble in their bowls and just be like,
see, just pour the bag has the picture of all the beautiful things, and then when it comes out, it's not. Yeah,
put it in your bowl, and just look at their face. Like, they would never eat that ever. I just think it would be a very profound.
I mean, someone might who's likes to do shocking things, but you wouldn't eat it every single day of your life, and I don't think you should. It's probably not a good idea. It's not really healthy. I think anyone would agree that that's not healthy. And that's one of the things that's really weird I always think about, is that veterinarians, kind of back to veterinarians who I don't mean to diss on at all, but that the veterinary profession is the only population of healthcare providers that recommend highly processed nutrition over real food. It's just so strange.
It is strange. I put a thing on Facebook a while back, and it was, I wrote that I went to my doctor and I haven't been feeling well, and I've been kind of tired and lethargic, and I think I have a little bit of arthritis, and I just kind of put this whole thing. And then I put, and then he suggested Cheerios, Doritos. Like I put out like all these like
Coke.
Right? And then I posed. Yeah. Do you think my doctor knows what do you think this is a good thing? Because that's what I feel like. You bring your animal to a conventional veterinarian who doesn't know anything about nutrition, and your animal is sick, and then they sell you cereal and Cheerios.
It's cereal. You know? It's Lucky Charms. It's not even Cheerios. Cheerios would be healthier, probably.
It's probably, I don't know.
When Lucky Charms.
You know, they did the arsenic test to find out how much arsenic is in cereal. Honey Nut Cheerios came out on top.
Oh, really?
For the most arsenic in it, yeah. Which is another reason why we don't want you to feed rice to your pets, because it has arsenic in it. Like, come on, you don't need rice. There's no value.
Yeah. But or factory farm chicken, if you're picking chicken.
Yeah.
There's a lot of arsenic in factory farm chicken.
It's just
super high arsenic. So even for raw feeders, you have to be careful about your sourcing. That's my whole thing. And I know for some people, they struggle with that. Where they live might be a hard place to find things, or, you know, budget constraints. But there's always, if there's a will, there's a way. You know, you can, if you're determined enough, then you would figure out something.
I started
SF Raw, for example. That was my solution when I couldn't afford it. I'm like, all right, I'm going to buy from the farms, get some friends together, invite a bunch of people, and we'll try and save some money here. So that was my whole goal with SF Raw, was finding the best sources possible for the best price possible. So
I need you to let me be your first little franchisee and come down and help me get this. I went out to a farm.
So Carrie, that's actually something that that's kind of in the works right now. So we should talk.
Honestly, I want to redo my whole store. I have a lot of like commercial, like Bones and Company. I have commercial foods that I sell, but I really want to get more into local farms. And so I got a connection with a guy out in Norco, which isn't too far from me. And I went and milked one of his cows the other day and brought it home for my dogs, and
that's awesome.
Got some eggs. Yeah. And so he's going to be a great source for, he thinks he can be a source for me for duck eggs, turkey eggs, chicken eggs.
Turkey eggs. I can't even get turkey eggs. That's amazing.
Eggs, I'm excited
to get. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So, but I'm like, I got it. This is where I need to get to. And then we're going to try to have a once a month farmers thing where people can come and like, it'll just be from these farmers. They're going to come out. He even said he would bring the goat for me. He's like, I'll bring, you can let the kids milk their own goat milk for their dog.
Wow. That's so cool. That's incredible.
But I don't have a source for, like, you have just fabulous stuff. I don't have it. Well, I have to go.
But I spend half my days doing that. So, I mean, that's a big part of what I do, is just tracking things down. And it's really hard. It is really hard. So, and to build relationships with people you can trust, and then they're struggling too. So someone who actually can maintain their farm and keep going and be soluble, and, you know, and a lot of them fold or they can't keep up. And with COVID, I mean, a lot of these like turkey and duck, and they just didn't make it, you know, and sheep and like more specialty meats, they folded. Most of them folded, you know, they couldn't handle it. So it's been really hard on the whole industry, you know.
Yeah.
And then I have higher restrictions too. Like when I first started SFR, I could buy directly from farms because it was going just from, they were buying direct to consumer. You don't have to have it USDA fit for human consumption. And I have to have everything certified fit for human consumption and it has to go through a USDA processing plant for me to legally sell it here. So I can't bring something from a cool little small farm that's just processing.
Why is that?
Farm. That's against the law here. Yeah, it's against the law. Yeah, so if I'm a retail spot, so it's really interesting. If you're a chef or if you're an individual, you can buy directly from the farm, or a CSA. that's fine because you're not reselling it. But even a chef, they'll have allowances for chefs. So chefs can go out and buy something that's been hunted or just, you know, farm slaughtered or something like that. But if you're a grocery or a retail spot, you have to have, everything has to go through the system. So it has to go through a state licensed or a USDA licensed, or has to have the bug on it, which is like a certified seal that an inspector has inspected. And
that doesn't even make sense if you think about it. So they can take the food to their restaurant and cook it for me and serve it to me, but I can't go buy it from you.
Or any grocery store, Carrie. Like if you go to a grocery or a health food store, all of that stuff has to be through a license. It has to be inspected and fit for human consumption through some licensed agency, like government, state, federal, you know, the federal USDA. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
very
just,
interesting.
It's just the law. Yeah. So, but it's very limiting because there's like all these really cool people that I would love to buy from that I can't. Yeah.
And you could if they went and got certified.
Yeah, but that's not something they can just do. It's really, there's not many USDA slaughtering facilities, and they all sort of specialize in certain species. So for example, like this is a great example. So for alpaca, we were getting alpaca that was being, and that's not a USDA, it's called a non-amiable species. So they're not regulated by the USDA. Typically, they don't go through a USDA facility. They're gone through state facilities. And so certain states, every state has different regulations and allowances for if they're allowed to sell out of state or not. So it's very complicated, but, and super highly regulated. And then there's just not many of those facilities. And then there's not many of those facilities that do alpaca. So literally it's like maybe 2 in the whole country or something like that. And one was like up near Washington, and they're usually kind of smaller places, and they struggle because they don't have, like, it's more specialty meats and they don't have thousands of pounds or whatever, you know, it's just really, it's hard for them.
Right.
And then it's super expensive for them to maintain the regulations and have an inspector on site at all times. So it gets really difficult. I would say the hardest part for farms is the hardest part. Like you can raise all the animals as much as you'd like and do a beautiful job raising them. You can't get it to market. You can go to a farmer's market and sell direct to consumer, totally fine. But if you want to sell that in a retail location, you can't. And so it's really hard to get into those facilities, and they're usually really far away. So then there's like the whole complicated and ethical and humane considerations of transporting a living animal on thousands of miles in a truck or a van. I mean, it's not right. You know, it's really, they're forced to do that, you know? So we really, in this country, we used to have abattoirs and slaughterhouses all over. I mean, the neighborhood I'm in right now is called Dog Patch because it used to, or Butcher Town. It's not Dog Patch. Dog Patch is a little bit up, but Butcher Town, because this is where all the butchers used to be. And Dog Patch is called Dog Patch because there's this kind of creek, and so all the butchers would slaughter the animals, and then all the dogs, like the, you know, dogs would come and eat all of the remnants and the blood and all that kind of stuff, because it was all kind of around Isalus Creek, which is up a little bit from here. Anyway, so it's history of San Francisco in the city. But I'm in Butchertown, which no one refers to it as that anymore because there aren't any butchers here anymore. We don't have them. So people, as they move into cities, they don't want to, not in my backyard, or they don't want the slaughterhouses. They don't want to see the slaughterhouses. They don't want to be around slaughterhouses. It's, you know, of course it's upsetting the animals being killed near you. Of course, I totally understand, but urban dwellers don't want to be connected to their food in that way. You know, they've been so disconnected for so many generations now that it used to be just a normal thing. And we used to have pigs we would have like garbage heaps in the cities, and then the pigs would be foraging on the garbage heaps, and then we would have slaughterhouses. I mean, this is just how we used to live. This is how urban areas were evolved originally. And as people get more and more, less and less comfortable with those traditional ways, we've closed those slaughterhouses and consolidated them into these big mega corporations. And there's just not that many of them now. So there's very few and far between, and all these small farmers, if they want to get to market, not just a farmer's market, not just direct to consumer, not just to the chefs, they want to sell in like a grocery or a natural food store, or they want to ship across state lines and things like that, they're going to have to go through one of these licensed facilities to be able to do that with their food. So with their animals. So it's a really difficult, it's one of the biggest challenges, I would say, for small farmers. It's really it's a huge problem for them. They can't get things to market. They can't survive. They can't sell to a greater population of customers because they don't have anywhere to process their animals.
Is there a way, I love this subject. Is there a way for that to come to change? Is there any hope
There's
of that changing?
There's a lot of people working on it, but the truth is that it's extraordinarily expensive. And these facilities, not many of them exist anymore. It's just they don't exist anymore. So you'd have to recreate the wheel. And then there's so much pushback and so much, people don't want that in their communities. People just don't want it. So
yeah,
they want to eat the meat, but they don't want it to be processed near them. They don't want to see or hear or know about it. I know. Which I understand. It's sad, but
it is sad. I went out to the farm because I'm starting to look towards learning this part of it. You know, Kasie and I are different, but in the same. I don't know if people that are watching this know, but Kasie grinds up her own stuff. Like, it's pretty amazing what she does. And that's what I see myself going towards that a little bit more. You know, I removed kibble from my store a few years back, and now I just have a bunch of freezers, but I do want to do that. But that's a learning curve for me. I'm going to have to learn about the, you know, all of the stuff. And so I'm like, Kasie, why don't you come down and we need to do it. I'm serious. Like, that's what I want inside my store, is it to be very fresh and my hardest part is just figuring out where the sources are. But my point, what I was going to say, is I went out to this farm and they had pigs there too. And of course I'm so removed from reality, like you said, and it's embarrassing actually, because I'm so removed from the reality of where our food.
And you're not as bad as most people, Carrie.
Well, at least I admit,
you work with animals, so you're actually in contact with animals. There's a lot of people who they're not even in contact with animals.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how removed they are.
I went out, you know, there, and I'm milking the cow. I said that the whole time I was there, milking the cow. She goes, "It's a goat." And I'm like, oh, I know it's a goat. I don't know why I keep saying milk the cow, but whatever. So I'm milking the goat, and they had pigs, and I wanted to pet the pigs and go in with the pigs and stuff. And
she's
I'm like, oh,
no, you don't.
Well, she didn't. She said, yeah, go on in, you know. So I go in and I'm petting this pig and brushing him. And then, of course, I'm like, oh, what do you do with these guys? And she's like, we're going to eat them. And I'm like, no.
Yeah, we had the same experience. That's so funny, Carrie, that you just did that, because I just brought all of our staff to Stumple Creek on Monday. And
really?
we all went for a farm visit. We all met here at 6 a.m. Some people were late, but I was here at 5. One of my new employees was here before I got here, and Bronco and I got here at 4:45 or 4:45. And anyway, we got out. It was an hour and a half drive, and we got out there, and we saw pigs too. And they were actually, that was the day they were getting harvested to go into the van to go be slaughtered. So we actually, and Alexander, who works here, and myself were both vegans, and it was sad. I mean, it's hard, but the good news is we saw. I was like, Alexander, how did you feel? Because both, both vegans. So I'm like, how do you feel about seeing those animals? And he said, well, and we both agreed that they were so healthy and they looked so good, and they were not stressed. They were totally just like, huh, where are we going now? Like, they didn't, I mean, it's kind of sad that they were oblivious, but they were not stressed, at least, which is great. Yeah. And it was cool that he explained that they have the farm hand who works there, the ranch hand who works there. He is the one who feeds them. And so I said, well, does he have help to get the pigs into the trailer? Because, I mean, gosh, that's got to be really, really hard. But he says, no, it's actually, he doesn't want help, and we don't want another person there, because then that would stress out the pigs, because they know him. And all he does is put food in there, and they just go in, so he doesn't have to do too much to get them in there. So, yeah. I know. So well, here's nice to know that.
Interesting little question for you, since nobody else is asking us questions. It's funny to me, off subject a little bit, is that if we continue this and we get more participants, one day we'll be like, remember when we did this and nobody asked us questions? But I have a question for you. How do you feel about, so I did a podcast. It was my very first podcast I ever did. And it was with a veterinarian called Dr. Are you familiar with Dr. Roman? You are. You follow.
Yes, Margot Roman.
Yeah, so, yes. Yeah, Margot Roman. So, and she started talking.
She's really well known for the fecal transplants.
Yes. But we started talking about sustainability, and she's a huge raw feeder, has fed her animals raw forever. But she's at that time, and that was 3-4 years ago, she was starting a study, her own study, to try to figure out if we could do more plant matter and less meat for the purpose of sustainability. How do you feel about it?
How many more hours do you have? And I have a little note that just came up saying my internet connection is unstable, so I don't know.
Okay, just say good idea, bad idea. I got to do more research on it.
No, I've done a lot of research. It's a very bad idea. It's a bad idea for the animals eating it, but it's also grossly misunderstood science. And so I have a lot of thoughts about it, a lot. Yeah. And I understand where they're coming from, but they're also just wrong. It's frankly not correct as far as the science goes. The truth of the matter is most plant foods, and I'm not going to say Dr. Roman specifically because I don't know if she does her own food, but she's already growing it on a small scale. But most vegans are just as harmful as for the environment from the foods that they eat on an environmental level as anyone who eats meat, because we eat factory farm vegetables. It's monocropping. It's just as bad. Frankly, it's pretty much just as bad. Anytime that you're doing a till operation, anytime that you're using even organic, it's monocropping is extremely damaging to the ecosystem and to the environment. And the only way for us to reverse climate change and restore the health of our soil and restore the health of our planet is by a regenerative agriculture system, which includes plants and animals in the same system. So one thing people could look at is Kiss the Soil. The founders of Cafe Gratitude, they're long time raw vegans like me. And they owned a awesome, oh my gosh, I love this restaurant called Cafe Gratitude in San Francisco. I go there pretty much every day. I am cool with the best yummy raw smooth. It's like a shake. It was so delicious. And then their tiramisu was amazing, and their enchilada, I am elated, was amazing. Anyway, I love their food. It was awesome. They had this amazing restaurant here. They opened up another restaurant that's still here called Gracias Madre, and they had something in Los Angeles. They were opening up a bunch of restaurants, and they had in the East Bay. The owner, the husband owner, he was having some health problems, and they ended up really getting into, they already had a farm where they were farming their own vegetables and all of the things that they used in their restaurant with a farm that was here. And then when they moved down there, my understanding, I might have some of the details incorrect, but they had their own farm. And what they realized is that the only way that they could farm and do the organic and healthy nutrient dense foods was if they were getting manure from other branches, because they need that to amend the soil really truly organically and not use chemicals and derivatives. And then they realized they needed to get their own cow because they didn't want manure that had been not really pure. So they wanted really pure manure, and so they wanted to raise their own cow for that. And so that sort of led them down this whole path of re-education and understanding of how important animals are as ruminant animals and monogastric animals too, like chickens and pigs and things like that. But they all play their part in an ecosystem, and you can't take one out from the other. They work synergistically to create a healthy planet and create a healthy ecosystem that's all based on the soil. And if we can sequester carbon in the soil by doing more of that type of farming, then that's the best way. So if you look for a biodynamic farm, which is what I'm trying to do as my vegan diet, I'm trying to find more biodynamic, regenerative plant-based foods so that I can eat. But there's no way. The idea of making our carnivores vegan with an environmental argument that's better for the environment is just flawed. That's where I should go. I should stop there. But that is just a flawed argument, because feeding them more and more vegan is, one, it's super damaging for their bodies, but it also doesn't necessarily help the environment in any way. It really doesn't. It's going the wrong direction. And I'm really sad to see that. And it's happening a lot because there's some people
I don't know. I don't think her and my understanding, and I don't want to misquote or anything, is that what she wanted to do was just be able to add more vegetation to a pet's diet, and not, because her thought was, if we win, right, you and I as pet nutritionists, and we get every single dog in America to eat, or the world to eat, a raw diet, will we be able to do that?
Yes.
Is that even?
Yes, it is entirely scalable. It's what needs to happen. This regenerative farming movement that's taking place right now, you will learn that this is exactly, it would be reverting back to what we did before. And so a patchwork of these small scale farms that are doing things in the right way is how we should be feeding ourselves, how we should be feeding our animals. And it's completely scalable. It is completely scalable. We do not need factory farms for any reason. There is no justification for a factory farming, and people will not go hungry. It will not, it's not something that it's not true. It's just not true. The numbers don't add up. And so it's just expensive to try and change this whole system that they're in right now. But if people go to Kiss the Soil, because what happened was he ended up healing his health by eating a cow and eating beef again. And then his son has he has this huge effort to try and teach people about how to raise animals in a way that's humane and that is necessary. And it's all this focused on the soil. And the only way to focus on the soil to save the planet, if people have an environmental focus on what would be the healthiest food for them to eat, it's going to have to be from regenerative farming. And that's going to have to include animals. There's so much cool information. I'm actually going to be talking to some people tomorrow. There's something called Farmer's Footprint. And I'm kind of so nervous, but also excited to have a meeting where I get to talk to them tomorrow a little bit about what SFRA does. But Farmer's Footprint is also another. There's all these great documentaries.
Are you going to do a podcast on it?
Yeah, there's so much great information. Yeah. If you look at White Oak Pastures, he's a big advocate for this type of farming, and he does a lot of speaking, and they've done. I think I ordered
something from White Oak Pastures.
They're awesome. Yeah, super good. Everything they do is beautiful and amazing. Yeah. Biggest Little Farm is another one. Gosh, there's so many. There's so many out there that you guys that are coming out that you could learn from.
I gotta learn more about that, because it's been something that I've thought, obviously as an animal lover. So, but
well, if you care about the environment, if that's your focus is the environment, you need to look at regenerative farming.
Yeah,
so look into that some more. You'll learn a lot. Hold on, I have a book. I don't know if I can reach it with my thing on. Hold on. It's okay. The Case for Better Meat is called Sacred Cow. Book right behind me. Sacred Cow is a documentary that just came out. It's also a book that I highly encourage everybody to read. So you'll get all the information. They did everything having to do with the environmental case for meat or against meat. You will learn. You'll learn. It will change everything. Your whole understanding, especially about beef being the biggest problem, because beef is actually of all of the things I have in here that I sell, beef is the one that's actually saving our planet. The beef that I have. It is saving the planet better than anything else that I sell.
Yeah. I'm going to have to watch that documentary. What's it called? Yes. The Sacred Cow?
Yes.
Sacred Cow. Is it on Netflix?
Should be. Yeah. Check out their website, Sacred Cow. There you go. She posted. Thank you.
It's amazing. I know. I love it. So, all right. Well, we're going to have to wrap this up and talk next week.
And we didn't even know we were going to talk about those things. That's the beauty of this conversation, is it just goes where it goes.
Started to talk about fleas, and then look where we ended up. We didn't even talk about fleas, but we'll talk about fleas next week, maybe. I don't know. I have no idea what we're going to talk about.
Yeah,
I don't want
to come up.
I don't want to know. I don't want to even think about it. Like Thursday today, I was like, what are we going to talk about? And then I was like, no, I'm not. I just want to. I know we will talk about animals. That's what I know.
Yeah, and that's kind of the cool thing about this experience, is that we're just going into it and having an open conversation and just Goes where it goes.
Goes where it
Who knows
goes.
where it will lead?
All right, everybody, we're going to sign off. So we'll see you next Thursday at 6 o'clock Pacific time. And like we said, we don't know what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, but if people bring questions,
I
that would
know
be
questions
great.
will be, or comments. Brandon had an awesome comment. That was it led me, you know, exactly. You know, we don't sell. Our doctors don't sell McDonald's in their office. It's not right behind them.
But you know what, Carrie? We do in hospitals.
We sell
and
it?
That's a problem. They do, yes. If you ever in a I hope that you're never in a hospital, but if you're ever stuck in a hospital, the worst thing is some of the food that they.
Well, yeah, no, I mean they feed it to you, but they don't.
They actually have McDonald's in the hospital. I'm not kidding.
Oh, that's pathetic. That's sad.
Yes, it's really, and schools, exactly. Victoria's is in schools too.
Oh yeah, the schools are a huge nightmare. That needs to stop. It's so sad.
Institutionalized food is linked to this whole mega agricultural system, and it has so many problems, and it's why we're also struggling with our health, and environmental and health struggles are related to this whole system that we're sort of stuck and plugged into, and it takes a lot of effort to get out of it.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to head off, guys. We'll have nice chat next week, next Thursday at 6 o'clock. If we decide to change the date, we'll let you know. But from now, please, if you guys could help us out, help the animals out, and tell your friends about this little chat they can come to and ask questions. That would be really helpful for us. If you can share it on your pages, that would be helpful as well. I think this could be a great thing, Kasie and I. We're so great. All of our, like, I was there in the beginning, like Victoria gets to say that I was there in the beginning. Hopefully there's a moment where we go, remember when? And it got so we were able to, you know, it's free advice. And I love talking to Kasie. So to me, it's just, I'll just talk to Kasie on Thursday nights.
Yeah, that's cool. That's great. I know, it's so nice. And hopefully we'll be able to have, I mean, I don't know if there's room for this in the future, but we could even have another, like, a third or fourth person pop up.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
We'll have friends. Like Victoria. Maybe Victoria would want to come on.
We'll drag her along.
Thank you. Oh, she's like, no. But it would be, I mean, it would be pretty fun. Maybe we could do a special event at some point once we meet a certain amount of followers or something like that. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, there's so much we could do. So it'll be a lot of fun. So, all right, everybody. Lori, thank you so much. She's always behind the scenes. I know not everybody knows, but I can't do this stuff. I had to do this at my house from now on because I'm having problems, you know, at Wi-Fi. So now I'm going to do it here until I figure out what's going on at work. So, but anyway, so awesome. All right. I'll see you next Thursday, everybody. Thanks, Lori.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.